So I am not in my usual setup, so hopefully the audio for this video will come through just fine. I wanted to jump on really quickly and say a word or two about a growing trend in the media of not endorsing in presidential elections or staying away from presidential elections. So, a growing number of US based media publications have decided not to endorse a candidate in the presidential election. But the decision was made less than 2 weeks before the presidential election. So the Los Angeles Times, the Washington Post, and now USA Today all pulled editorials reportedly in support of Vice President Kamala Harris, opting instead to sit out of weighing in at such a pivotal moment and during such a pivotal election. Now, in the case of the Los Angeles Times, I believe they announced their decision not to endorse last week, possibly on Friday. The Washington Post also announced about 3 days ago, and the paper's owners reportedly forced the hands of the editorial board, the editorial page editors. So the owner of the Los Angeles Times, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, said that he was just following the advice of the editorial board. And then you had editorial board members who said that actually they were told that they could not publish the op-ed that may have already been written. A number of them stepped down. For those who may not know, editorial boards represent the views of the publisher of the paper and the editorial board. Political leaders, candidates, astute readers, and others closely follow editorials. I've seen editorials follow news coverage as well. And what I mean by that is if something is in the news, if something is heavily covered in the news, there's a good chance that there will be an editorial where the paper weighs in and gives their perspective on that issue or on that campaign. So a lot of people look for editorials, especially of the publications that they regularly read or get their news. Now, endorsing in political elections, especially presidential elections, is standard. It's been happening for years. For instance, the Los Angeles Times had endorsed a presidential candidate in every election cycle since 2004. And the Washington Post has been endorsing in presidential election cycles, I want to say, since 1988. USA Today has been making presidential endorsements since 1982. So these papers have been doing this for a very long time. Now, obviously, their decision so close to an election sparked backlash. You have staff who are leaving. In the case of the Washington Post, apparently over 200,000 people have canceled their subscriptions. Now, who knows whether some of those people may come back? I'm not sure. But I think that if you were going to make a decision like this, announcing it 6 months prior, a year prior, even 2 years prior would have been better than doing it so close to an election, because in this case, the optics are not great. Again, the fallout has been swift, not just because this is a departure from precedent for these publications, but because the stakes in this election are so high. Additionally, what does it say about a news organization that's supposed to be unbiased and independent that the owners were able to step in and pull an endorsement? That doesn't look good either. Also, what does this say about the future of news? Does this look more like an autocracy? Like what is really going on? And I'm wondering, are these owners afraid that Harris is not going to come out on top and they don't want to experience retribution from Trump should he be elected? I'm not sure. But regardless of the rationale, many consumers are angry, and this has created a crisis of sorts. Now, to be clear, a crisis is anything that takes you off mission and off purpose. Again, the Washington Post reportedly lost, I want to say, around 200,000 subscribers as of Monday, October 28th in the afternoon. Who knows if that number will grow? The Post, their publisher, Will Lewis, he framed the decision as a return to the paper's roots as an independent voice. Although the editorial board of the Washington Post said that it had drafted an endorsement for Vice President Kamala Harris that was allegedly blocked by the owner of the publication, Jeff Bezos. So Lewis denied that claim, by the way. And for their part, the Los Angeles Times, again, their owner said that he was respecting a decision by the editorial board. And then you had the editorial board coming out to say that that he actually blocked the endorsement. So the fallout has been swift. Multiple staffers have issued their resignation. Readers are declaring that they have either canceled their digital subscriptions or they intend to do so. And, there's a crisis on a couple fronts. There's one, the public facing crisis and what media consumers, how they feel, right? But then there's also the crisis within the news departments of these organizations. So if you have your top talent leaving because they feel like this has been an overreach, then what does that do for the publication, right? I want to say that the Washington Post, their editorial board had 9 members, and of the 9, a third have reportedly put in their resignation. Not good. And certainly when you think about diversity in media, I always wonder, when people start leaving, what percentage of the people who are leaving are people of color and people who represent or who cover the news with fidelity and through a racial equity lens. I saw one columnist on Twitter who said that she was no longer going to be a columnist for the Washington Post, someone who's very respected, within the National Association of Black Journalists. And so it's just a thought that, just a thought and a concern. Now, I mentioned that endorsing in presidential elections has been a long-term standard, but the New York Times issued earlier this year that they said earlier this year that they were not going to endorse in state elections, but only presidential elections. So I just wonder if this trend is going to, escalate, and I wonder what it does in terms of the media being unbiased and independent. I'm curious to know what you think. So please drop in the comments section. Let us know what you think. Let us know, if you were working for one of these publications, how you would react to an editorial that's already written, waiting to hit send, and then it's blocked by the owner. Thanks so much for listening. And by the way, if you like this content and have not already, please be sure to subscribe, leave a positive comment, and also share this with your friends. Thanks for listening.